Mr. Cook. Tonight we present in its entirety Kenneth Branagh's filmed version of Shakespeare's Henry V. Now, Masterpiece Theatre viewers will remember Branagh from our Fortunes of War, in which he played a callow, young English socialist teacher in Romania. Since then he's done many original things, including publishing, at the age of 28, his memoirs. Now, the idea of this film, the way it was to be shot, the script, its new view of war, was entirely Branagh's from the beginning. And the moment the film came out, it was immediately compared with Laurence Olivier's 1944 film version of the same play, which was fair enough, except the comparison was made quite often in order to deplore Branagh's version and long for the glory that was Olivier's. Branagh had no intention of inviting such a comparison. He felt that almost 50 years after the Olivier version, there was a new way of looking at the play and a new way of looking at war. And Branagh went back and looked at the reception of the play at different times. And he discovered that a London production had been booed off the stage in 1938, which was the last desperate year of appeasing Hitler. And I suspect something of the sort might have happened to Olivier's film if it had appeared then, 1938, when everybody in England wanted to do anything to get rid of Hitler, except fight him. Well, as it was, the Olivier version came out in 1944, when the Allied armies at last had invaded France and were breaking through the Nazi land defenses. 1944 was a tonic year for Britons and Americans, and the Olivier film was a celebration of the coming defeat of Hitler. It was a romantic hymn sung by Britain's most romantic actor to what Othello called the pride, pomp, and circumstance of glorious war. Now, Kenneth Branagh had quite different ideas, two on which he based his version. One thing he'd noted was our media obsession with the private life of the powerful. And the other was the new face of war, as his father's generation had known and seen it in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Cambodia. The brutality, the fear, the confusion, the murk, the messiness of war. And he based his version on those two elements. His version, like Olivier's, is essentially the imposition of battle scenes on a text by William Shakespeare, which, by the way, neither describes nor enacts the Battle of Agincourt. I find it odd that both Olivier and Branagh left in the opening chorus, which is a kind of apology for pretending to represent an epic military victory inside the confines of a little wooden theatre where the play was first performed. It seems a little arch to say, "Oh, you're going to have to use your imaginations. We're frightfully sorry, because there's no other way that you can picture the clash of armies and the crash of steel," which is then exactly what you're going to see, because they just invented the movies. Now, the plot, such as it is quite simple, and like many Shakespeare plots, had been lifted whole from the English historical chronicler Holinshed. Henry V came to the throne when he was 25 in 1413, and his father had left him a bitter inheritance, a continuing quarrel with the French over large parts of their country that had once belonged to England when William of Normandy, the Conqueror, had acceded to the English throne. But down the centuries, a lot of these lands had been fought over in desultory battles, ceded by treaty, forgotten about. Now, the old Archbishop of Canterbury persuaded Henry that he had a very strong legal claim to all of them. And first reluctantly and then enthusiastically, young Henry warmed to the idea and began negotiations with the French. But it has to be said, at the same time, he prepared an invasion force and began to mobilize gunners and miners and men-at-arms from all over the country. Till in August 1415, he had down there on the south coast of England 8,000 archers, 2,000 men-at-arms, and 1,500 small boats. And the moment he heard they were ready, he broke off negotiations with the French and invaded France on the coast near Harfleur. So, Kenneth Branagh's Henry V, based on a text by William Shakespeare.
Henry V will return after this brief intermission. This is PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service.
Oh, wow. Did you see that?
Sun, stars, and sea air. Take a delightful vacation without leaving home. When John Hemingway and novelist John Gregory Dunn take you to a place that's got it all. L.A. is it, our next stop on travel.
Tomorrow night at 8 here on WETA.
Enter the WETA sweepstakes. This luxury 1992 Honda Accord from Brown Arlington Honda and Mount Vernon Honda could be yours. Don't delay. Enter today.
On the next National Geographic special, think you have what it takes to brave Alaska? Where an average winter day could be 50 below zero, and your closest neighbor could be 50 miles away. Hey, you've got to be tough if you're braving Alaska.
Explore the land of northern exposure Wednesday night at 8 on WETA.
You are watching viewer-supported public television in Washington, D.C. WETA, Channel 26.
Masterpiece Theatre is made possible by a grant from Mobile Corporation, which invites you to join with them in supporting your local public television station.
We now return to Henry V on Masterpiece Theatre.